Right now, across the globe, there are just billions of dollars of commercial freight moving around. By truck, train, ship, you name it.
Yeah, it's a massive, massive web of logistics.
Right, and you would naturally assume that moving literally thousands of tons of material involves this, like, hyper-rigid, mathematically flawless system.
Oh, totally. You'd think it's all down to the exact decimal point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you actually peel back the layers of LTL, so that's less than truckload shipping, you find something pretty shocking.
Say the least.
Yeah, for decades, the entire pricing structure of this hugely complex industry was just based on comfortable guesswork. It basically ran on vibes and what insiders like to call tribal knowledge.
Which is just wild when you think about the scale of it. I mean, that creates an incredibly volatile environment.
Wow.
You've got this massive industry operating on habits, muscle memory, basically assumptions, and suddenly it's colliding with a new era of unblinking, totally unforgiving technology. Technology that absolutely refuses to guess anymore. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are unpacking this fascinating clash between old school warehouse culture and modern AI.
It's a really interesting collision.
It really is. And we're pulling from a strategic messaging document and a video script today. They detail this specialized piece of software called the GRG NMFC Wizard.
Right, the wizard.
Yeah. And our mission for you today is to look at how solving one hyper-specific friction point, literally just accurately describing what is inside a cardboard box, ends up completely overhauling an industry's sales process, their training, and their transparency.
Yeah, because the broader takeaway here is universally applicable. I mean, we're looking at a masterclass in how replacing a fragile system of, well, hope with embedded intelligence could just strip the friction out of almost any complex business operation.
But I think to really understand the solution, we have to kind of walk the floor of a traditional freight dock first, right? To see those failure points in action.
Absolutely. We have to set the scene.
So paint that picture for us. What was the standard operating procedure before all these digital tools stepped in? Well, historically, the process of quoting and classifying LTL freight was surprisingly vague, like almost shockingly vague.
Okay.
So picture a customer service representative, a CSR, right? They're sitting at a desk. A customer calls to ship a pallet of goods. The CSR creates a bill of lading.
Which is the BOL, right? The foundational legal document for the shipment.
Exactly, the BOL. But when they got to the commodity description part, they would routinely just write down incredibly broad terms. Things like building materials or plumbing supplies.
Or just general merchandise.
Right. Just completely generic labels.
Wait, before we go further, for anyone who isn't, deep in the freight trenches, let's establish how pricing actually works here. It's dictated by the NMFC, right?
Yeah, the National Motor Freight Classification.
Which, from what I understand, is essentially this giant, insanely complicated rule book that dictates what things cost to ship based on what they actually are.
That is the absolute crux of it. The NMFC is a massive directory. I mean, historically, this was a literal physical binder the size of 3 telephone books.
Right.
Yeah, and every conceivable item in commerce has an NMFC item number and a corresponding class ranging from 50 to 500.
And 50 is cheap, 500 is expensive.
Exactly. Class 50 is super cheap to ship. Class 500 is incredibly expensive. So when a CSR just wrote building materials on the paperwork, they were completely bypassing all of that nuance.
So they were just guessing.
Basically, a seasoned CSR would look at that vague phrase, think about the specific client, and just say, well, we always class this as NMFC Class 70.
Why?
Or they'd literally pull up a shipment from like 6 months ago and just copy-paste the old class.
So it's literally muscle memory disguised as logistics.
Yeah.
Because building materials is functionally meaningless.
Completely meaningless.
Like that could be a stack of raw 2x4s, or it could be a pallet of highly fragile, specialized titanium roofing brackets.
Right. Totally different risk profiles, totally different weights.
But as long as the box got on the truck and arrived safely, nobody really asked any questions. The shipper paid the Class 70 rate, and everyone just moved on.
Yeah, but that era of looking the other way, that is dead.
Completely dead.
It died the exact moment modern carriers brought actual physical measurement technology into their terminals. Our sources highlight that carriers are just not relying on hope anymore, or whatever the CSR randomly jotted down.
They're verifying it.
Verifying it with extreme prejudice. They've introduced things like freight snap dimensioners, AI-driven terminal inspections, and rigorous density auditing.
So I'm picturing like an automated toll booth, but for a forklift.
That is actually a great way to visualize it. So a forklift drives a pallet through this massive scanning arch right on the dock. Lasers map the exact physical dimensions, the length, the width, the height.
And it does this instantly.
Instantly. The system calculates the shipment's cube, which is the total cubic volume of the freight. It weighs it at the exact same time, all in seconds.
Wow. So it's basically like trying to pass off an oversized carry-on bag at the airport, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where you confidently tell the gate agent, trust me, it fits, only for them to force you to drop it into that unforgiving metal sizer in front of everyone. The carriers have basically built the ultimate metal sizer, and everyone's old tribal knowledge is getting caught.
They built an inescapable net, and the consequence of getting caught is the dreaded rebill.
Ah, the rebill.
Yeah, because the NMFC rulebook is heavily reliant on density. So your tribal knowledge might tell you a pallet of goods is class 70, but if the way it's packaged changes its density even slightly, that same item might legitimately become a class 100 or class 125.
And the scanner catches that.
The AI scanner catches the discrepancy every time. The carrier slaps a massive financial penalty on the shipment, and suddenly you are having a terrible phone call with your client trying to explain why their freight bill just doubled.
Yeah, and the client is furious because you already quoted them the lower price.
Exactly. It's a nightmare.
Which really brings us to the core technical hurdle the developers of this GRG NMFC Wizard had to clear. Because if you realize that vague keywords like building materials are triggering all these massive rebill penalties, the most obvious solution seems simple, right? Just take that massive, telephone book-sized NMFC rulebook, digitize it, and put a search bar on it.
But the developers discovered that a simple search engine completely fails to solve this problem.
It's not enough.
Not even close. The sources really emphasize a major revelation here. NMFC classification is not a keyword problem. It is an inference problem.
Meaning a standard, like Fritrel plus F search, is actually dangerous in this context.
Highly dangerous. I mean, think about feeding the phrase building materials into a basic keyword search. To a rigid modern pricing system, that phrase is functionally useless.
Right.
The system needs to infer what you actually mean. Does building materials infer wood products, metal, roofing materials, plastics, siding?
And they all have different rules.
Exactly. Each of those families has entirely different classification rules, liability limits, and density sensitivities. A dumb search engine might just spit out the first result that matches the text, which just leads to another bad quote and another rebill.
Let me push back on that for a second, though.
Yeah.
Because if I'm a CSR, I don't want to get into some philosophical debate with a piece of software about the ontology of wood products.
Sure.
I just want a quick quote from my customer. So why can't I just type in wood and get a magic number? Why does the system need to know all these granular structures?
Because if the system doesn't force you into those granular structures, it is just guessing again. And then we're right back to the airport carry-on sizer problem.
Ah, okay. The scanner doesn't care.
Exactly. The AI scanner on the dock doesn't care about your quick quote. It only cares about the physical reality of the pallet. So instead of forcing a user to manually flip through an NMFC book or click through a useless search engine, the GRG Wizard redesigns the entire workflow.
Using what the sources call embedded shipment intelligence.
Yes, embedded shipment intelligence.
So it's actively steering the user away from their own bad habits.
It acts as a strict operational guardrail. When you enter a term, it first identifies the probable commodity families. Then it parses what the NMFC calls VIZ group structures.
Wait, VIZ, like V-I-Z?
Yeah, VIZ. It's this old Latin abbreviation used in the rulebook, meaning namely, or that is to say.
Oh, gotcha.
It basically defines how a broader commodity is broken down into subcategories. The wizard traces those relationships. It inherits the governing rules from those groups to accurately narrow down the possibilities, always checking for density requirements before it ever spits out a class number.
I think the best way to visualize this inference engine is this specific testing breakthrough they mentioned in the sources.
The sinks example?
Yeah, the developers ran a test using plumbing products, specifically sinks, to see how the logic handled a broad term.
And that sinks example perfectly illustrates the mechanics here. In their testing, they literally just typed the word sinks into the wizard. Now, a standard database would just look for the word sink and return a static number.
But the wizard didn't do that.
No, it didn't. It inferred the broader category and pulled up the whole family tree. It found sinks, lavatories, basins, drain boards, and all related article rows.
And then it connects the dots between all of them.
Exactly. It realizes that despite being different items, they all inherit the exact same governing NMFC rule, which is item 158880.
Okay.
And the crucial piece of intelligence the wizard extracts from item 158880 is that the final freight class cannot be legally determined until the density is calculated.
See, this is the real light bulb moment for me. It's not actually about what the product is. Like a sink is a sink. It's about the physics of the box it sits in.
Yes. The physics dictate the price. The software actually pauses its workflow and demands the dimensions and the weight from the user.
It won't let them proceed without it.
Right. And once the user enters those, the wizard automatically calculates the total cubic volume, so the cube, and divides the weight by that cube to find the PCF.
Which is pounds per cubic foot.
Exactly.
So, okay, if a manufacturer puts the exact same ceramic sink into a standard box, it might have a PCF that gets you a perfectly reasonable shipping rate.
Sure.
But if they say, run out of standard boxes and put that exact same sink into a box with 3 extra inches of empty space on every side, they are now basically paying to ship air.
Yep, you're shipping air.
The cubic volume increases, the density plummets, and suddenly your shipping costs skyrocket, even though the sink itself hasn't changed by a single ounce.
That is exactly what happens. In the source's test case, the system calculated a density of 15.63 PCF based on the dimensions provided.
Okay.
So the software automatically resolved the density subcategory and locked in class 70. But the real magic of the tool is its dynamic nature.
What do you mean by dynamic?
The developers noted that if you tweak the weight or add an inch to the dimensions on the screen, the assigned class shifts automatically in real time. It is not a static lookup table. It is a live physics calculator.
It's mirroring what the AI scanner on the dock will see later.
Exactly. And because that dynamic physics calculator exists on the back end, it completely changes where and how you can actually sell these services.
Right, because you don't have to be chained to a desk hoping the warehouse guys pack things tightly. The sources introduce a massive operational shift here, which they call face-to-face mobility.
Yeah, this is huge for the sales side. Since this embedded shipment intelligence lives in the cloud and is totally accessible via a tablet, an account manager can take this logic straight to the source.
Out onto the floor.
Right. They can walk a warehouse floor alongside their client, looking directly at the actual pallets being wrapped.
Kind of like taking your car to a mechanic, right?
Yeah, how so?
Well, instead of the mechanic scratching their head and saying, I'll call you tomorrow with a vague estimate, they stand right next to you with the diagnostic tablet.
Oh, I like that.
And they don't just show you the error code. They say, look, if we use this slightly different part, your fuel efficiency goes up 20%, and they prove the math right there on the screen.
That is a perfect analogy, because that completely flips the dynamic of a sales call. It shifts from a defensive price negotiation where the rep just hands over a rate and hopes the client takes it, to actual consultative selling.
They become a partner.
Exactly. The rep is demonstrating in real time how packaging optimization, pallet configuration, and density impacts are directly driving the cost. If the client is paying for air, the rep can show them exactly how trimming 2 inches off their packaging drops them into a cheaper freight class. They are solving the problem together.
And the stakes for getting that math right just absolutely go through the roof when you start moving freight off the mainland.
Oh.
The sources get very specific about a workflow for offshore shipping here. Specifically, the Hawaii and Alaska rater integration.
Right, because trans-Pacific quoting is notoriously complex. You are dealing with a multi-leg journey with totally different pricing structures.
Right, truck to ship to truck.
Exactly. When a customer shares a shipment profile destined for Hawaii, the wizard doesn't just give one blended guess. It breaks the journey into segments instantly.
Okay.
First, you have the mainland advance rate. That's the cost to get the freight on a truck from the warehouse to the port in California or Washington.
And the wizard validates the exact NMFC class for that mainland leg, right? So there are no surprises from those AI laser scanners at the initial terminal.
Correct. That leg is entirely insulated from rebills. But simultaneously, the tool's Hawaii rater kicks in to calculate the over-the-water rate, or the OTW.
Okay.
These two distinct calculations merge instantly into a consolidated door-to-door quote right on the tablet.
Yeah.
And to your point about the stakes, density intelligence is absolutely critical for that over-the-water leg.
Right, because once that freight hits the port, it's getting shoved into a 40-foot steel shipping container and put on a massive cargo ship. Space is at an absolute premium.
Ocean freight is highly cube sensitive. I mean, the economics of a cargo ship demand maximizing every single cubic inch. A mistake in calculating the actual dimensions and density for an offshore container shipment isn't just an annoyance, it is financially disastrous.
The margins just disappear.
Exactly. So the Wizard protects both the broker and the shipper from that massive liability by forcing perfect calculation up front before the freight ever leaves the loading dock.
And if a client has a massive catalog, a rep doesn't even have to stand there scanning boxes one by one. The sources highlight this bulk audit feature.
It's the CSV upload, yeah.
Yeah. A rep can take a CSV file of a client's entire product inventory, upload it into the system, and generate a massive report. They can instantly show a client, look, here are the 40 items in your catalog where your packaging density is exposing you to rebill risks, and here's exactly how much money you will save if you optimize them.
Which means the sales rep effectively becomes a highly valued operational auditor for the client.
Yeah.
Which actually leads into perhaps the most fascinating insight from all the documentation, in my opinion.
What's that?
Well, the GRG Wizard was designed for a very specific commercial purpose, right? Ensure accurate pricing, stop the financial bleed of rebills, and close deals faster using mobile tablets.
Makes sense.
But the sources reveal a massive, entirely unintended side effect.
Yeah, this was wild. It accidentally rewired the company culture. It basically became a stealth training platform.
Exactly. It attacks the root cause of the tribal knowledge problem. Because the software simply refuses to let users be vague, it forces CSRs into a state of operational discipline.
Right.
Think about the life cycle of a rebill. A carrier's AI scanner flags a shipment. The carrier issues a penalty. But the broker might not audit that penalty until 3 months down the line.
Oh, well, that long.
Yeah, and the person investigating the claim might not even be the CSR who booked the freight in the first place.
So if they open up the historical bill of lading, and the only text in the commodity description is just building materials, the investigation is pretty much over before it begins.
Totally over.
The carrier has laser-measured proof of the dimensions and weight. You just have a vague phrase you jotted down 3 months ago. You have absolutely no defense, and you just have to pay the penalty.
There is zero shipment intelligence left behind to fight the claim. The Wizard changes that paradigm entirely by forcing the right questions at the exact point of origin.
It's prompting them immediately.
It effectively trains the user every single time they log in. It demands to know, what exactly is this product? Which subcategory does it belong to? How is it packaged? What are the precise dimensions? What is the true mathematical density?
It's hardwiring the reality that good classification inherently becomes bulletproof documentation.
Exactly.
By simply removing the option to take a shortcut, the software forces an entire industry to eat their operational vegetables.
Eat their vegetables, I like that.
Yeah, like you can't just type in what you feel the class should be based on how you did it 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You are forced to engage with the physics and the logic of the shipment sitting in front of you today.
It systematically elevates the baseline competency of every single person who uses it. It completely removes the liability of relying on your most experienced employee's memory and replaces it with an institutional intelligence that literally anyone can access.
It's just incredible how solving one highly technical data problem, just getting a computer to infer that a sink is part of a density-governed plumbing family, ripples out to change everything.
It really is.
It changes the daily behavior of the CSR at their desk. It changes the pitch of the sales rep on the warehouse floor. It even changes the physical cardboard packaging decisions made by the manufacturer.
Ultimately, we observed a massive transition from a system running on muscle memory and vague keywords to a system driven entirely by embedded shipment intelligence. The introduction of objective measurement technology, those AI-driven terminal scanners, broke the old tribal system entirely by understanding inference, calculating dynamic density, and pushing that real-time transparency onto a mobile tablet. This tool just redesigns the entire life cycle of a freight transaction.
It is the ultimate shift from guessing to knowing. And for you listening, the takeaways here stretch way, way beyond the logistics industry.
Sure.
Because whether you are trying to figure out how to ship a shipping container of sinks across the Pacific Ocean, or you're just trying to optimize the daily workflows in your own completely unrelated business, the lesson is exactly the same. Vague descriptions, undocumented assumptions, and the phrase, well, that's the way we've always done it. Those are massive liabilities hiding in plain sight.
Absolutely. And this entire evolution poses an essential question for anyone running a business. We saw how automated dimensioners and rigorous auditing force the freight industry to abandon their comfortable, vague shortcuts. It makes you wonder what vague tribal shortcuts are hiding in your own industry right now, just waiting for a new piece of technology to expose them.
Right. What is the oversized carry-on bag in your profession, and who is currently building the scanner that is finally going to catch it? Definitely something to mull over. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.